The war on Gaza now, and the Israeli military has released a group of Palestinians who were detained during raids on al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City. They're having medical checks at Al-Aqsa and Nasser hospitals. Among those released is the director of al-Shifa hospital, Muhammad Abu Salmiya. He was detained in November while taking part in a United Nations mission to evacuate patients from the medical complex. Abu Salmiya described conditions as tragic because of a lack of food and drink in Israeli prisons.
All the Palestinian detainees are suffering. I left them in a very dire condition. My message is that their issue must be part of any negotiations until all the Palestinian detainees are released. Al-Shifa hospital will be rebuilt, and it will be once again a beacon of healthcare for all the Palestinians, not only Gazans. I will resume my duties as soon as it is feasible.
Let's bring in Hind al-Khoudary now, live for us in Deir, el-Balah, central Gaza. Hind, the director of al-Shifa hospital, one of several Palestinians released by Israel. Can you bring us up to date with what we've heard about their conditions and what led to this release, the circumstances surrounding this release?
Well, Dr Muhammad Abu Salmiya is one of 55 Palestinian prisoners who were released earlier today. We have been seeing all of the prisoners, their faces look different, their features look different, they lost a lot of weight. And Dr Muhammad Abu Salmiya already mentioned that the health situation, the conditions in the prisons are terrifying. There's lack of food, there's lack of water, and there's also lack of medical treatment. For example, Dr. Muhammad Abu Salmiya was detained and the Palestinians here believe that he was kidnapped on the Netzarim checkpoint while he was evacuating from the northern parts of Gaza to the south after the Israeli forces issued those orders to Palestinians to evacuate. Other Palestinians who were released today were arrested and detained in different parts in the northern parts of Gaza, and some families said that those Palestinians were kidnapped where Palestinian families did not know anything about those Palestinians who were detained and released earlier today. According to Dr. Muhammad Abu Salmiya, he says that there are hundreds and thousands of other Palestinian prisoners that are still in those Israeli jails. They're witnessing horrific very terrifying, and they're suffering from the Israeli prisons where there is lack of food, water, and medicine. And he also mentioned that some Palestinians died during the integration process.
And Hind, what's the latest on the ground there? The Israeli attacks continue across the Gaza Strip, and the ground invasion of Shujaia in Gaza City, that district in Gaza City, also continues. Bring us up to speed with what you know is happening right now.
Well, let's start in the middle area where there was intense artillery shelling in the eastern parts of Deir el-Balah. Moving to al-Shifa, the ground invasion there continues for the 5th consecutive day. We're talking about a very densely populated area where some people were able to evacuate, but some people stayed and were unable to leave, and they were trapped in their houses. We're talking about people who are injured and medical teams could not reach them. There has been no water, no food for 5 days, and the intensity of the airstrikes continue. Palestinians surrounding Shujaia are reporting that the artillery shelling did not stop, airstrikes did not stop, and also the Israeli forces are blowing up a complete residential area. It's very sad to see this happen again in Shujaia, where in the 2014 war, the same exact area witnessed the same exact demolition, violence, and this is the continuous cycle of the systematic actions against the Palestinians by the Israeli forces.
Hind, thank you very much for the update. That's Al Jazeera's Hind al-Khoudary live there in Deir el-Balah, central Gaza. Let's discuss these latest developments now with Mansour Shouman, who's a Palestinian journalist and humanitarian who witnessed the war in Rafah and Khan Younis, joining us here on the set. Thank you, Mansour, for being with us. Let's start with the release of the director of al-Shifa hospital and several others, 55 Palestinians released by Israeli forces. We heard the director talk about the conditions that they were in these Israeli prisons and what they suffered. obviously this is not just a one-off incident. The conditions that these Palestinian prisoners are faced with in these Israeli prisons. What more can you tell us about this?
Definitely. There are thousands of more, like Dr. Muhammad Abu Salmiya, who had been detained in the wrongful way over the last few months. As you heard from Dr. Muhammad, they are going through very terrible conditions, both mentally and physically. They're not being fed the proper food or water. They're being tortured, and what they're going through is hell on earth right now. Similar to how the international governments and communities and organizations put pressure on the Israeli government to free Dr. Muhammad Abu Salmiya, we call upon them to also work towards freeing the thousands of other detainees that are in those detainment centers right now.
What is Israel's justification for arresting the director of al-Shifa hospital? He was arrested during a humanitarian mission with the UN staff that were in Gaza. How do they justify this arrest?
They haven't, I don't think they have released anything official in terms of a statement, but since his detainment in November, we haven't heard back from the Israeli government on why they do what they do to the medical staff, to the administrators, to the doctors, the nurses. I'm sure you've heard about the atrocities that they have done to hospitals in the north, the central and the southern regions. It seems that they've been given the green light to do whatever they want in Gaza, both to residential, commercial and medical facilities. I just want to point out that in the eyes of the Palestinians and the free people around the world, they all see Dr. Muhammad Abu Salmiya as a real hero on the ground. He could have left al-Shifa hospital a very long time ago and joined the many refugees in the south, but he was determined to stay in al-Shifa hospital and to continue direct the work there. And not only that, also as someone who I have been neighbors with and who lives 500 meters away from me, I know him personally, and I know that for a fact that he would like to return back on the top of his work as soon as possible. This shows you the determination and the resilience of the Palestinian people in general, especially their leadership and the people who are in authority.
Yeah, we talked about with Hind the attacks continuing across Gaza, and there's intense fighting right now in the Gaza City district of Shujaia with civilians trapped there reportedly. Israel has said it wants to destroy Hamas tunnels which are still in Shujaia. They say, although this is an area which they previously declared that they'd cleared completely and now they're back. Can you tell us more about this district of Gaza City? It's significant, and you know the civilians who are trapped there, what sort of situation are they enduring right now?
Al-Shaja'iyya, the translation of it in Arabic, is the neighborhood of the brave people. So historically, Al-Shaja'iyya was always a place where people were resilient and people were able to remain strong and stay in their land despite any kind of offense against them historically. So I think that for many, many decades, that neighborhood has always been a place where the Israeli forces fear. And I'm also part of many WhatsApp groups, many of who have families and relatives in Al-Shaja'iyya. They're saying that their civilian families are determined to stay on their land there. They do not want to leave. They believe that it is time for them to continue to stay where they are. They don't want to be forced to be refugees. And they've seen what happened to many thousands of others of people who left their lands and what happened to them. And they want to stay where they are. I think that's what the Israelis are trying to do. They're trying to drive the people out of the north. They're trying to push them to the south and to other areas, maybe because they want to control the north in the near future. I'm not sure. But it's been the same clip that we've all seen. Every time they withdraw from a residence or an area in north, they come back to it.
Right.
They've done that to al-Shifa hospital 3 times. They've done that to many neighborhoods in the north many times. And we're seeing it again happen to al-Shaja'iyya, to our people there. So we hope that the international community will put pressure on the Israelis to stop this as soon as possible and to keep our civilians safe on the ground.
Mansour Shouman, thank you very much for talking to us about this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.